Well, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world. We are excited that you are here with us today on Co-working Live with Red Worldwide. And we have something special today. On Wednesdays, we will often focus our attention on creativity and innovation. This is kind of our schedule for the week. And we are intentional about making sure that we hit this topic because, one of the biggest things that is a part of any business is being creative and being in a position where you allow your creativity to flow. And it's very, very important that people understand that businesses are in business, to provide a solution to a problem. And we are thinking about the solution that we want to provide to a problem, but a lot of times we don't think about the difference that we have or the difference that we make, I should say, in how we provide the service. There are many different places that sell hamburgers, but there are subtle differences between, a Rally's, okay, and a McDonald's, or, I don't know where you are in the country or, in where you are in the world, you might have a different type of hamburger joint, fat burgers, okay? It's something that's a real big deal out here in California. And so there's a big difference between a fat burgers and and a Jack in the Box. Okay. There's just, no comparison as far as I'm concerned. And, I'm, pretty much vegan, and they have, options that appeal to me, at fat burgers that they don't have at Jack in the Box, just saying. So when we're thinking about our creative solution, what it is that we do to maintain our creativity, and how do we innovate on top of what we're doing so that we can stay fresh and keep people wanting more, that's a big deal. And I have come to understand that there are some different philosophies or trains of thought that will help you to get in motion for making sure you're always staying creative and you're always thinking about your process and what it is that you're providing to your customers or clients. How do you make sure that it is staying something that they are creating for them, a way to see that they need your next best thing and that they want to participate in the upsell. You got to make sure that you are staying on top of that. And so we're going to break down a couple of processes that will help you with this, and things that I use. And I just shared with a group that comes on through Zoom, that I try not to bring anything that I haven't used to the community, because if I haven't used it, and then I really don't know how it works, and I don't want to introduce something to someone that I cannot vouch for. So even when I'm looking at, the process of iterating, the process of innovating, I want to bring you a process that worked for me, something that I use, or that I've used, and that way I know for a fact that even though your business may be different than mine, I can vouch for what it did for me. And then I also will bring things to you that I'm using with clients, because I'm coaching every day. I'm working with some type of business, and just so that people understand, outside of Red Worldwide, my coaching practice is really designed for most of the people that work with me are between the $3 million to $10 million range. That's what their average revenue is, I should say gross, is every year. And so in that space, there are some very specific things that they need. I do work with newbies. I have a Smarter Start boot camp, and I have, a launch program. And so working with some of the newbies, we have, kind of, I would say, come up with a process that works for them. And so these processes I'm talking about, they do work with newbies, but they are done mostly for the $3 million to $10 million range, because of the fact that they're constantly iterating, and in the process of their iteration, they have to stay ahead of their competitors so that they can continue to, grab their niche, and nobody from their niche is going over to someone else because they're, not continuing to be in a position where they can meet the need of the customer. So the first process I want to talk about this morning is design thinking. And I did a whole TED talk about this in the metaverse some months ago. And some of you guys who are metaverse people who are watching this, you might remember, that particular piece that we did. I think I made it available on YouTube somewhere, but it was a wonderful time that we had to really break down the concept of design thinking. And so it is really a human-centered approach to innovation. And when we talk about design thinking, I want you to think about these phases that are involved: the empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and test. Those are the five bases of the design thinking model. And so we want to look at, what does that really mean for a person who is in the that conscious mindset of being able to provide services or products to their clients, their consumers. And let's kind of look at this integration into your innovative thought process from this standpoint. Whether it's technology or whether it is a front-facing service that you offer where you are the technology, or you're bringing the technology, I should say, it really does still involve the same five phases. So understanding your client or customer's needs. And you've got to be able to put yourself in the seat of the customer in order for you to do that. How do you bring empathy into what you do without it? There's no way. You have to really be able to, say, okay, if I were the consumer, what is it that I would want, to have from the person who is bringing me this product or this service, and how can I make it easier for them to gain access to it? Down to packaging. Let me tell you, when I'm working with my inventors who are in our product professional program, it's a special coaching program that we have that works with people who are bringing a product to market. And when I'm working with them, I am talking to them about everything from how do you make sure that a person doesn't have a hard time opening the package, and to get to the product. Okay. How do you make sure that the package itself is designed to be sustainable and environmentally friendly? I mean, if that's a thing for you and you're concerned about the environment, then you got to be concerned about it all the way through to how many pieces of paper is going to be left when they open up this package, and how will they dispose of it depending on where they are and what type of package it is. Is it a situation where they're going to have to find a trash can, or is it something that can be reused? Is it coming in a package that is that, forward thinking that you have another use for it after they opened it up to get whatever is in it out, these kinds of things. But in a service-based business, that has everything to do with how do they schedule to be a part of whatever it is that you're providing? How do they pay? Okay. Do you have options for them? Are there ways that they can gain access to you that if they're remote, are you accessible? A lot of times we don't think about the fact that in Africa, if people are buying your service and they're there and it's a front-facing service where they have to have, the ability to, be in a conference call with you or on a Zoom-like platform with you, video conference, do you have some opportunity for them if they can't get Zoom on their phone? If they're in a place where Zoom doesn't work, because in some countries they don't allow Zoom because of the security not being what it is that country feels like it needs to be. So do you have another option? Can you use WebEx, Cisco's product, or can you use Teams? Is Google Meet going to work? What are the things that you can provide to them to still make sure that they can get access to you if they're remote? Okay, there are some places here in America where signal issues are a problem. So if you're selling courses, will your courses work? Can they download the course through your platform to their phone so they can watch it later? Or do they have to be on the internet? These are things that you got to be thinking about, when you're empathizing and putting yourself in the place of the consumer or the client or the customer. You got to be thinking about how accessible is this to them? Okay. And is this something that they will be able to use long term? Now, the other thing you got to be doing is thinking about the defining the problem, articulating the problem, really looking at what it is that you're planning to solve for them. And if you are going to define the product, the problem, okay, that the product is there to solve, you really have to do some research, because sometimes, when you think the problem is really not what the problem is. And that's a whole nother story. So, to me, I look at the problem that I solve in, when I'm bringing people tax advisory services, is that sometimes people don't want to ask their tax professional for advice because they don't believe that the tax professional understands the business that they're in or the industry that they're in. Yes, they think that they understand taxes, but I really want to know if I'm doing this right, based on the industry. And I've seen other people in the industry do this, but yet, I'm doing this. Does it matter? And so having the ability to have a tax advisor, okay, that acts as a business advisor, and business advisor first, tax advisor second, who can work with your tax professional to make sure that you are in the right structure, or that your company is taking advantage of whatever the new laws are, or whatever types of subsidies that might be out there, or tax credits, or whatever. It really does help. And so understanding the problem and being able to define it can put you in a position where the solution now evolves to cover everything that a person might be having problems with. And I see that some of our clients who are in insurance doing this very, very succinctly, because what they do is they're looking at, okay, what is the purpose of you getting insurance? And based on that purpose, then they back into providing a solution that's customized for the problem, right? So when you're thinking about things, I want you to be thinking about, did I really define the problem well? Did I, go all in on making sure that I got the research down, for this particular problem? Am I looking at the most current demographic, ecographic, psychographic, information about this particular thing that I'm doing? And if not, where do I go to find that information? Is this going to be in an industry report? Or is this something that I have to pay for the research? Because there are some things that the research is not as readily available. You might have research, but it might be 5 years old or 10 years old. That may not help you based on what's going on now. After the pandemic, everything changed for most industries. And so having 5-year-old information may not really give you all the information you need for that problem. So you got to really define the problem, from several different angles, and find out if, what you're doing is going to really give you the information you need. And if you're on a budget and you can't really afford to pay the $3,500 for an industry report that you're looking at sometimes when you're online looking through all of these different, options, there are ways to get information. And I would suggest that you would contact us, reach out to us, admin@redworldwide.org, or you could also, set an appointment. We have discovery sessions, and we can kind of go over, how to help you define the problem and where you can get, assistance, because some colleges offer, free research assistance. Who knew that this could be something that you could go to a school to get? Or for that matter, there's other kinds of entities like SCORE, the Better Business Bureau. There are ways that you can gain access to some of the information that you need. So, we will help you find some of those ways if you're really on a budget and you need to, jump in there on defining your product. It's a problem. Okay. So ideate. Okay. How do you ideate? Ideate is another word for brainstorming. Okay. You have to really think about brainstorming the solution from the standpoint of not just looking at what you've already put on paper, but sometimes that might include you setting up a focus group, having the opportunity to hear, other people tell you, how your solution sounds to them, or what it looks like to them, or why they buy it, or why they wouldn't. Maybe the price point is too high, or maybe, for that particular type of person, they might need you to have add-ons, and they might be willing to pay for the add-ons to your solution because the solution needs to fit neatly in their world or their life. So brainstorming really becomes sometimes a scenario of you positioning yourself so that you can hear the pain points from the people who have the pain points, and let them look at the solution and say, you know what, this could very well work for me, or you know what, this works for me, but not in the way that, I really need it right now. Let me give you an example of how this worked for a client of ours who had a wonderful product for kids. And it is just an amazing way for parents to make sure that if their children are working on something like Lego, or working with something like Legos, or they have small parts that they're working with, they can have it on this mat. And she created this mat that has a rubber mat piece around the sides of it so that it keeps all of the little pieces on the mat, right? And the way that this particular thing would work for a specific child who was about 5 to 7 or years old might be different for someone who is really crafting, that might be more like 10 or 12 or even 14, but it still was appropriate for all of those ages. However, we had our focus group, and she passed out mats. She gave them away to everybody that participated in the focus group. We organized the focus group, had it at our office in Texas, and we were all excited. We had some people who couldn't physically make it to where we were because they were in a different state or even a different country. So we sent them mats. So they had them, and they had an opportunity to play with it, to utilize it with their kids, their grandkids, before we actually came to the focus group. In the focus group session, it came out that the mat really was great. However, if these wonderful little 5-year-olds or 14-year-olds had baby sisters, or other people who were a lot younger, they could see the little frilly edge of rubber that was around it as being something to eat, because it was cute and it felt nice. And we had a situation where my grandbaby actually did exactly that, tried to eat it. So this is not the thing, that was supposed to happen. But and because it came off to be washable, which was wonderful, for the people who it was designed for. But for the unintended consequence was that, okay, it coming off could mean that someone could take it off like a little person and walk away with it. And now it becomes, something that's great to, eat, or even a choking hazard. So based on that, there was more iteration that had to happen, right? More brainstorming, in their ideation process, that went into it to create another iteration of this product that made the choking hazard not a hazard. Or for that matter, maybe they were going to just leave it like it was, but put on the box that this product is not to be used for children under a certain age. These are the kinds of things that happen in those ideation processes and sessions. So when you bring in the polls, the surveys, the focus groups to your brainstorming session, what it does for you is it gives you feedback. And feedback is so important to ideation because it now gives you the ability to adapt, your product for your customer base, or create a second product that's available to a younger age group, and a third product that might be available to an older age group. One of the things that came out is that we liked the product, and she was thinking about doing it in different colors. That might be available for people who were a lot younger, but for someone who was using this at an older age, they might desire to have it in black. And I love the fact that it had, all of the measurements on it where you could use it even as a ruler. You could measure out things. And that was great for me because as an adult, I'd love to use this thing, and I do use it. We have it here at our home now. But these types of things came to her only through feedback, because in her mind, she had envisioned it one way, and maybe, had in her mind thought about maybe a phase 2 or phase 3. Getting the feedback from someone cut out a lot of time, and it gave her the ability to get to market with her minimum viable product, okay, a lot sooner, and to have it be more successful because she got the feedback necessary to understand how to market it to the group that she was specifically solving the problem for. So, that part of her process was amazing. But now, prototype, coming up with a process that gives you this, minimum viable product, that MVP that we talked about. It gives you the ability to get a representation of the solution. Maybe it's not the full product. And even in a service-based business, you can create a minimum viable product that gives you the ability to get more feedback. This process encourages, the ability of continuous feedback all the way through. So there are some companies that will release a product knowing that this is not the real product, not the final version. This is the version that's going to get us the feedback so that we can get to that final version. So I think about, the iPhone 1, okay, the very first iPhone. It was great. But unfortunately, it did not give everyone everything they needed to have so that they could make a decision about, their full, turning their full life over into the hands of this smartphone. And at the time, there were no real smartphones that operated the way that the iPhone operated. And so, yes, it was amazing because it had so much there. But to get down to what really mattered, iPhone 5 was the one for me, because by iPhone 5, I believe that the iPhone that had been, created at the beginning really had gone through enough iterations that it provided me with everything that I needed, where I could run a whole business off that phone. And I did. And so I want to tell you that I could ditch my computer for half the day. If I had to travel someplace and I couldn't take anything but my iPhone, I was still in business, and I could do everything with the exception of printing from my iPhone. And even with that, I could send the document someplace else to print if I needed to, because right after that, AirPrint came out and it was over with. Okay. The iPhone and AirPrint was it for me in the business I was doing at the time. So what am I saying? I'm saying that your try the solution with others process comes through the representation of your final. And the representation of the final product is your prototype, the minimum viable product, because it gives you, an opportunity to see how customers are going to react to what you've built, how they're going to take that thing in and, really make it their own. What is it that they do with it or don't do with it that can help you to get to final? And we often will call this the alpha stage. When you put something out there, just for a small group, we call it a pilot. And during that pilot, you get some really good information. And then you'll go to the beta phase, where you've got now almost everything on it that you believe should be there, but you need just a little bit more feedback. And so you stick it out there and then get that feedback, and then it allows you to go to launch, right? And so, with a service-based business, what this could look like for you is you are having a group that you allow to come in and get a portion of your services, to test it out, to give you the feedback you need, so you will know, okay, this works really well in, small groups, or this works really well with this particular age group, or this works really well with this gender or that gender. This works really, really well with people who live in this town or that town, and so it gives you all of that feedback. So now you can say, I can serve unequivocally this group of people for this length of time using this particular service the way that it is, or I need to adjust for people who are in these particular situations, and I'll have a special product that I sell for them, that's different from the product that I sell for this other. So let me give you an example of what that looks like for me. Okay. In the coaching space, what I have done in the past to get my MVP out there is I've done scholarships. I've given away a year or 6 months or 3 months or 2 months or a month of coaching to a particular group of people, one-on-ones or masterminds or however I did it, to get the feedback that I needed to create the ultimate product that I now have called the Superior Results Coaching Process. And that product actually has been something that has been developed over 3 years. It's taken me 3 years to get to what I believe is the best coaching program that I am able to offer. And so with that information that I got from my feedback, I learned that there is a specific group of people that's my niche. And these people will always, have so much value from what it is that I provide based on how I provide coaching. It doesn't mean that I can't reach the other people or that I don't have a package for them or a process for them. It just means that I need to understand who my tribe is, and I need to understand that I can only provide that other service to a small group of people. They can only be 5% of the people that I serve because I don't have the bandwidth to be able to serve them all at the same level. So I have most of my people over in this group and a smaller amount in this group and a very small amount in the group that really is in that launch stage, because it requires way more time than I can offer. But I have other coaches, right, who I know can provide that service. And some of them work with us at Red and some of them don't. And so sometimes I will send someone to a coach where they can get that service that they need, because I know that they will serve them better than I am able to in this season. But to get my product, to the one that has been designed for me to offer where I am my best, I had to go through the prototype. I had to get to that prototype through serving all of the people that really reached out to me, so I could see who it is that I serve best. And once I found that group, I focused my attention there. I started moving all the services in alignment to make sure that I was able to provide it to that group. So this is how we utilize the design thinking. We go through the empathize, define, ideate, prototype, and then we test, right? We try the solution with others. And in doing that, it gives us everything that we need to know about how we provide the service so that we can encourage, that empathy process, for us, and the collaborative ideation to give us back what we need to do to give out the service or the product in a way that is, not just going to increase our bottom line, but it increases our customer lifetime value. Okay, so when we are thinking about the design process, and or for that matter, thinking about our entire process of how we get to market, I would like to suggest the lean startup as a methodology. And the reason why I'd like to suggest this, because what happens is it gives you a core process that helps to make sure that you get to, market as quickly as possible with what it is that you have, and that you are able to pivot or persevere. You might have heard somebody say, if you're going to fail, fail fast. I've heard that. And I've used that, because I'm telling you that if something is not working and it's not working, either you iterate or you ditch it. Okay. That or that, right? So when we're looking at the lean startup process, and we won't have time to finish this up today, but I really want to put it on your mind, and because we're going to finish it next week, but I want you to be thinking about, how do I start lean? A lot of people will do a 25-page business plan. And they will do, and I'm not saying that, because we do business plans, we help our clients to do business plans, we business plan and we benchmark and we do all of these wonderful things in our coaching program. But the very first thing we do is the lean canvas, or a business canvas, a one-page business plan, because we find that as a methodology, developing businesses for developing business and products, we shorten product development cycles and rapidly discover, if this proposed business idea is viable, by jumping into that lean startup process and doing that, 1 page plan and understanding everything that you need to understand within the guise of that. So the core concept, here is having a feedback loop, detailing, to you, how you can really gain the understanding from others of whether or not they will use your service and continue to use your service. I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but there are many different products that come to market, or services that come to market for that matter, and they're not around long. Something else preempts them, or they're out of business because of technology, or, something, they were a one-hit wonder. Okay. And it's a shame that they didn't have enough information from the beginning to understand, how to really build, how to measure, and how to learn, from what it is that they're doing, through, feedback. Okay. So it's just this build, measure, learn loop that you get from the lean startup process that will help you to understand whether you pivot or persevere. This is not working, so let me just go to something different. Maybe that means that instead of you having something in house, that you're doing it online. Okay, and so that's a pivot. Or maybe it's just too soon to tell. Maybe, not enough people have used it, and you need to, drill down and stay in there, hang in there, for a little bit longer. A few weeks ago, when we were sharing online, we talked about a gentleman who has a wonderful shop here in the Southern California area where I am today. And I mean, he has, 3 of them now, 3 of these restaurants, and they are just amazing. The food is wonderful. But one of them that he thought was going to be doing really well because of where it was positioned is not doing as well, even though the other 2 are doing great. Well, it wasn't that he didn't have a good idea, it was location. And when he put the other ones up, he thought he was doing well with this first one. He didn't understand that he was barely skimming the surface. When he put the other ones up, they did well in a manner that helped him to understand, well, gosh, what I thought was well really wasn't well. They're, really doing well. And it was because their location is different. He thought because of where he was positioned and that there were lots of students and teachers and other people, there were county employees over there, that they would, come to patronize his location because he had a good, affordable meal, and because it was provided a certain kind of way, and there wasn't anything fast casual like that in the neighborhood. And, he really thought that that was a good reason for him to plant that particular restaurant in that location. But he came to understand that it was too difficult for people to get in and out. There were other things that created, some challenges. Food trucks, okay, were his competitors, and they were showing up in the parking lot of these other places. And so that took away some of the share of the monopoly that he thought he was going to have. So I'm saying to you that in the process of this, build, measure, learn loop, you sometimes can find this out, and you might have a proof of concept, but the proof of concept is not foolproof for location. Right? It may not be, something that you thought about. Even there are some people who start off doing services online and they pivot and go to doing something in person because they find out they can make plenty more money, being in person than they can online. Whereas it could be the opposite. We don't have the overhead in a couple of the locations where we were, once paying $15,000 a month for offices, thinking that we were doing it. We're making this happen because we're able to pay $15,000 a month. And when we had to go completely online, we realized that we made far more money being online, and people could get to us. They liked it because they didn't have to leave their house, or they didn't have to leave their office. They could take their lunch break or whatever break and have their coaching sessions. And I'm like, man, if I'd have thought about that, how much money would we have been having in our savings or reserve at this point in time, if we hadn't been paying $15,000 a month for offices. So what am I saying to you? I'm saying that the thought process has to be there to have a wonderful methodology for starting and continuing to run your company. Because if you utilize lean startup all the way through, what happens is that you get this concept of continuous iteration, to always do business better. And you have this thought process also of pivoting, of persevering, during the feedback loop, using real life examples, you know, for you to look back and say, okay, my history shows me, that when we did this, this happened. So my final thoughts on this are this, when you adopt a mindset of continuous learning and adaptation in your business, you can leverage, both the design thinking method and the lean startup process, to continue to develop out your business, develop out your products so that you provide a service or a product that is effectively, bringing solution to the problem of your customer. And it then will effectively bring you the profit, the freedom, that you desire and deserve. And you hear me talk about that all the time. What do you desire and deserve from your business? And so we have to be thinking about it from that standpoint so that we can continue to do this, for the long haul. Well, this has been Patience Rose with Red Worldwide Co-working Live, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow where we talk about taking the tech that we can use and putting it into our businesses in such a way that it does create for us the options that we need to have to continue to do what we do and do it better every time. All right, see you next time.